what I'm working on tonight is this little quilt right here. I already have it loaded in. I have it loaded in my 9.5 by 14 magnetic hoop. And I'm doing this on the Solaris tonight. And this is just like a little sample quilt that I try all different kinds of techniques on. You know how I like to do that. And I actually did some hand Sashiko stitching on it. Check it out right there. It's been many decades since I have attempted to do any type of hand quilting. But it was very relaxing to do in front of the TV. But now I'm going to do some of it using IQ Designer. So I am going to go here to my home screen. And I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to IQ Designer and click on OK. I already have my embroidery foot attached. And now I'm going to take my hoop and attach it to the machine. I'm going to take my hoop and attach it to the machine like this. And little small quilts like this, they make great table covers, and they're also great to try different techniques on. Instead of working on a larger project, if you're just learning and it's really better to do something small than something large first time out of the gate, so to speak, to work on something. So let me get that all smoothed out. Now, whenever I do IQ Designer stuff, regardless of which machine I am on, I always use a mouse, simply because I feel it's more accurate and I just have a better experience all the way around in a mouse on a sewing machine instead of a pointer. And especially for me, filming the steps of it, it just makes it easier to do. So what I'm going to do first, I don't want all the grid work on here for this. So I'm going to go, where am I going to go? I'm going to go up here to my settings page. And I'm going to turn the grids off. I don't want any grids whatsoever on it. And I'm going to change my hoop up here to 9.5 by 14 and click on OK. And next, I'm going to go down here to this little icon over here on the left side of the screen. And that is the stamps and patterns. Not stamps and patterns, stamps and shapes. And if you look at the top, now, on the Altair and Meridian, since the screen will look just a hair different, however, everything I'm showing you tonight will also work on those machines as well. Of course, when it comes to getting the image of your hooped image into the machine, if you have the Altair or Meridian, you would actually just use your positioning app on your mobile device to snap a picture and send it to your machine. Okay, so next I'm going to go here to see this little icon up here that looks like a hoop. We want to click on that, and now you select the hoop size for IQ Designer. Okay, you want that to be the same size hoop that you're going to embroidery with. It just will eliminate you getting error messages of saying try a larger sized hoop, or if you've ever had that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now then, so it doesn't matter what type of quilt you have in your hoop, these steps will apply to all quilts, whether you have a melon-shaped piece, or squares, or triangles, logs, strips, whatever, they're all geometric shapes. Okay, so next I'm going to go up here. Now this is your lines property settings, and I'm going to click on this zigzag. You can also get into the menu by clicking on the little page, and you'll know you're in the right place when it says line property. If you see the zigzag with the red line through it, you want to click on that, because what that does, anything I now draw on my IQ Designer screen will not stitch out. That's how you make it a no-sew line, by tapping on that little icon there that has the zigzag with the red line through it. and then you can just click on OK. We'll apply stitches later. So there is my workable area, as you can see in that frame right there. So the next thing I want to do, I want to scan in what I have inside my hoop here on this quilt sandwich. So on the Destiny, Altair, and Meridian, the little icon is over here on this side of the screen under the percentage sign. But it looks like a little flower leaf. You just want to click on that, and out of all of these things, we only want to do an image scan. On your positioning app, it's the image scan under IQ. It's the first icon. We do not want it to apply stitches to what we're going to scan into it or take an image of. So hit the scan, click on OK, and now it's going to scan in the image to the machine. It's going to hold my needle thread up so it's not in my picture. If it was, it really wouldn't matter. And then next week I will demo how to use the border quilting feature on the Solaris on this little quilt sample. Okay, one more little pass. Of course, an advantage to the Altair / Meridian is you're not limited to whatever the resolution of the camera that's built into the machine is. You just snap a picture of it in the hoop, then attach the hoop to the machine, and it wirelessly sends that photo or image into IQ Designer. However, with the Solaris and the Destiny, that is the process we just went through to scan it in, and you can see right here there's a very light image, and I can darken that up, and I will here in just a moment. However, the advantage to Destiny and Solaris, you don't have to remove your hoop every time you want to take a scan in an image. So that's one of the big advantages there. In the end, it all comes out the same. Excuse me. Let me give me a cough drop here. Where are you? You're right over here. Okay. Alrighty. So we've got our image scanned in. And you can see these two little icons right up here, like a pale leaf and a darker leaf. Well, that's the contrast for this image that we just scanned in. And I'm just going to darken it up a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. I'll go all the way, and now you can see it's actually the same color as what I have here on my machine. However, to draw lines on top of that to place quilting designs, you don't want to have that all the way up because you'll never see the lines that you are drawing. But I like to have it about 2 notches from the left to the right. Just almost midway on the contrast. Now then, okay, so what I'm going to do first, I'm going to quilt one of those squares by the piece, what I call quilting by the piece. Now, what that means is, and this one right here, for instance, see where my cursor is moving? What I'm going to do, I'm going to go up here to where this pencil is. Oops, wrong one. That's Regent. Let me go back. Here we go. That's the one I want there. And now I am going to select this number 4 icon under light. These are your drawing tools right here. Okay? This is for freehand drawing, the 2 pencils. It'd be like holding down your mouse, or wherever you move your finger, it'll draw wherever you move at, but you're not going to get a nice straight line. That's what number 3 and number 4 is. This will just draw straight lines. The lightning bolt, number 3, just draws straight line from point to point. Number 4 will draw straight lines, but they'll attach each time you let go of it, each time you click the mouse. That's what I'm going to use. And I'm going to leave it on no sew because what I'm doing now, I'm defining an area to apply a quilting design to. So I'm going to click on OK. And now, oops, I'm going to move this over some. There we go. Okay, so all I'm going to do here, had to move it so my arm wasn't wrapped around the camera. So I'm going to use this and I'm going to draw and outline this one pink square right here. And the way I'm going to do that, whenever you're doing this, you see how your percentage magnifier is at 100%? You want to up that to at least 200. It makes your lines more accurate. And many times I up it to 400%. Then you can click on the hand to move that image around while you're zoomed in. And the square I want is right here, this pink square right here, okay? And I'm going to start right up here at this very top corner. Come over here, I'm going to click on my little lightning bolt. And I'm going to click one time right there on that the very inside corner right there. I want to follow this seam line all the way down to the next corner. And watch, I'm going to click once here and it just drew a line from that point to that point. Now you can't see it too good on here, so I'm going to lower the contrast again, and now you can start to see that line there. If I lower it again, you'll see it a whole lot better. See, there's where I've drawn so far. So let's darken it back up a couple of notches. And each time I move my mouse, now I don't have a mouse button depressed right now, but I'm going to move it down and click. I'm going to move it down and click. I'm going to move it down and click. Now in the Altair, Meridian, Destiny, you have a little box up here to move this screen around. On the Solaris, you have this little hand. I'm just going to move it up here. I'm on my way to this corner right here. Now I've previously stitched in the ditch right here, and that's okay. So I'm going to click on my lightning bolt, bring it down some more, and some more, and I'm going to stop it right where all those four corners meet. Okay, and I'm just going to follow this seam line down this way. I'm just going to outline that entire piece of fabric on my screen. Everybody, this is the reason I own a baby lock, and if I'm going to quilt in the hoop, this is how I like to do it. Okay, then I'm going to come up this way, and we'll move our screen a little bit more, our screen image. And then we'll come up this way for our final go round. Oops. Get that pencil on, it might be a bit better. Let's see where we're at here. Right down here is where we've ended off. There we go. And up to that corner, I'm going to follow that next seam line. Darken it up just a hair. Okay. And that should be a closed shape now. We're going to go back out to 100%. And I'm going to lower my screen image so the background image is off. And now you can see I have outlined that entire piece of fabric. Pretty cool. So now I'm ready to apply a quilting design inside of the area that I just defined. So the next thing we're going to work with is these boxes right here. And that is our region properties. Region property. And it doesn't matter what color you select down here, simply because this is just, this will tell it what color thread is what these colored boxes represent. It represents the color of thread that you might put into there. I really don't care about that personally, because I'm going to pick out whatever color I want anyway. So just try to make it something that'll contrast well with whatever you have scanned in so it shows up. I'm just going to leave it with the red. But what I am going to do here, I'm going to go here to this third icon, and that's where all of the built-in, they're called decorative fills. I call them my quilting patterns. Let me hit the select button. And on the Solaris, you have Solaris 2 or the Solaris 1 with both upgrades. You have 42 different designs to choose from. Here's the hardest part of all, is trying to decide which one to put into that area to quilt. And you'll probably find, like I do, I always have some favorites. And for the Solaris, number 38 is one of my favorites. It has multiple size pebbles in it, and it's really cool. However, one that's in all the machines that I also really, really like is all the way up here at the top, and it's actually the number 1. It's a beautiful design quilted out. I'm just going to select that one, so I'm going to click on OK. Then I'm going to click on OK again to get back to the IQ screen. And then to apply that inside the area that I just drew, I got to make sure I tap the fill bucket. And then I'm going to come over here and tap on the inside of that square that I just outlined. And there it is. There is my quilting design applied to it. Pretty cool, right? Then I'm going to hit the next button. And then there's some more things that I can do with that design I just applied. Here, I can make the design larger or smaller. For instance, if I click on that, I can go all the way up to 200%. Let's just go all the way up. And then I'm going to click on OK. And we'll get a preview. Look how much, if you were actually quilting a large quilt and you didn't want heavy quilting on it, that'd be one way to accomplish that. You can also tighten it up and make it all the way down to 50% of its original size, which would be half as small. Click on OK. And that puts a lot of quilting into it. So I'm just going to turn it back up to 100 for this demo. Click on OK. Now all of the machines have this one, that zoom feature where you can resize the density of the quilting. It also has this where you can angle it. It can change the angle of that design. And it also has this one right here. And that is whether to draw an outline, for it to stitch out an outline all the way around the edges. On the Solaris 2, it is defaulted to off. On Destiny, Altair, Meridian, I believe it is defaulted to on. So here's the thing about that. If you are going to send this, if you're doing embroidery where you don't have the entire quilt sandwich in the hoop, if you're doing quilting where your actual finished quilt backing is not going to be stitched on in this step, then I would have that turned off. Okay? If you're going to do what I'm doing, what most people do, I personally leave it on, and I will tell you why. Because if I have it off, and look at that design right there, I'm going to darken it up, I'm going to lighten it up. So there's that design. Right now, that outline is off. Wherever you see a line stop, when you go to stitch it out, it is going to stop there, cut the thread, and tie it off. If you have your actual quilt backing that it's stitching on, guess what you're going to get on the back of your entire quilting area back there? You're going to get little knots with thread tails. You don't want that on the back of a finished quilt. If I turn outline on, click on OK, it will actually stitch a solid line all the way around that quilting design. And since we traced it on the seam line, it should actually stitch it right in the ditch, or very, very close to it. Some people hate how that look. Some people loves how that look. I happen to love how that looks. So, and once we get into embroidery, I'll show you a little trick about how to clean up the back of your quilt in the loop. Okay? So I'm going to leave that on. Now, those 3 boxes there, that's as far as you go on the Altair, Destiny, and the Meridian. On the Solaris, you have 3 more. This will actually skew or distort that quilting pattern, and there's 18 different settings for it. That's a whole episode on itself. Not going to mess with that tonight. This one will change where the center of the quilting design begins to stitch at. Think of an offset, kind of, sort of, is what that is. Now this third one is one that I actually do like to use, because what this does, this will have it do either a heavy quilting design or a light quilting design. I'm going to click on that and its thickness. So the heavy one is where it will do 2 to 3 stitches on top of each other, which is what the Destiny, Altair, Meridian do. With the Solaris, you can stick it on light and click on OK. And then it actually looks more like something you would do in a long arm. And that's one benefit the Solaris has over some of the other machines. And I'm happy with that now, so I'm going to hit set. Once I hit set and click on OK, it takes me to embroidery edit. There it is. And now I'm just going to tap on the embroidery button and we're going to stitch it out. 1,428 stitches, and it says it'll take about 2 minutes to stitch out. So let me thread my needle. Move the camera over just a hair. There we go. Now, one way, here's a little trick for you. One way to make sure you don't get knots or thread nests on the back of your quilt, if you're putting the entire quilt sandwich in it, is this step right here. So I'm going to make sure my thread tensioner is released. I'm going to pull out me a tail of thread. I'm going to use my needle up and down button. Go needle down, needle up. And then I'm going to pull my bobbin thread to the top. Okay? And I'm just going to hold on to it. And then I'm going to hit the start button and let it start stitching. I'm not pulling super tight. I'm just holding it down to the side so there's no slack on that bobbin thread. And that way it gets a nice clean start. And now that it's stitched away from it, I'm going to stop it and raise the presser foot. And I'm going to bring my thread tails over here to the side, and I'm going to snip them. Okay? There we go. And also, before we go any further, we're going to go down here. See this needle with the minus and plus sign? Right next to it is the scissor button. We're going to hit that scissor button, and I'm going to turn off all the scissors. I don't want the machine to snip threads when it's done. And I'm going to tell you why, because that's how you can eliminate there being long jump stitches on the back of your quilt that you'll have to go in and trim at a later date. So if you have the outline on, you could actually leave it on, because there will be no jumps around or anything like that. But when you're doing programming more than one square in at a time, it's best to have that off. So I'm just going to have it off and hit OK. And I'm going to press the start button again and let it finish stitching that design out. And if you're wondering what thread I'm using the same thread in the upper, for my upper quilting thread. I'm using Madeira Aero Quilt 40 weight quilting thread, not only through the needle, but in my bobbin also. I have matching thread in the bobbin. I'm going to pull the camera over closer so you can see what's going on there. There it is. But you know, whether you have the outline off or on, or the thread trimmers off or on, that's entirely up to how you want to do it. In any of the things I say here on this channel, these are just suggestions from experience, and you can do it or not do it. That's entirely up to you. And I encourage you to be your own sewer and own quilter and be willing to experiment, because that's part of the fun of it. But isn't that pretty? That's how easy it is to quilt your quilts in the hoop. Now, in the same token, let's say I had an 8-inch quilt blocks. My quilt was all 8-inch quilt blocks. This hoop, I could actually quilt comfortably a 9-inch square block in it, because this is a 9.5 by 14. On the Solaris, it also has a 10.5 by 16-inch hoop, which in that, I could actually fully quilt an entire 10-inch block in one go. And that's all there is to it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And it's telling you it's done. And before anybody asks, I know you think, well, hey, I just programmed in one, so I can just repeat that on all the others. Well, I can tell you, if you do that, it's not going to line up perfectly, because simply of the way fabric is, the next piece over might be just like 1/8 of an inch further away than what this particular one was, and you might not like how that looks. Okay, I'm going to bring the camera back over though. First though, let me click on OK here. Because if you're wondering what that outline looks like, now I've got a dark fuchsia colored thread in here, okay? So now it has not trimmed any threads yet. So what I'm going to do first of all, I'm just going to trim this thread even with the top right back there. Okay, now my bobbin thread is still attached. I'm going to just pull this out and stand it up and just cut my thread. And when I get over to the cutting table or somewhere else, I will actually trim that even with the back of it. Now then, check it out. That is with the outline on. I think it looks pretty awesome. You can barely see it. And if you use a gray thread or a thread that blends in with the fabric even better, you're never go it'll just look like you've quilted it by the piece. This is called quilting by the piece, by the way. When you quilt each individual piece of fabric in a quilt like this, that's called quilting by the piece. If you have a block in there and you quilt the one design over an entire block with a bunch of pieces in it, that's called quilting by the block. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so there's that. Let's do another one. I'm going to just stick it back in. Make sure I have my thread tail here trimmed good so it doesn't sew over it. There we go. I'm just going to attach my hoop. Still in there nice and flat. Now if I hadn't removed my hoop, I wouldn't even scan it again, to be perfectly honest. But since I've taken it out of the frame, I am going to rescan it. So I'm going to go back to IQ Designer. There we are. It remembers the last settings of the hoop sizes that you've chosen, so you don't have to do that again. So we're just going to scan it in again, right up here. Image scan, scan, and OK. Now it'll just scan it in. And when it scans it in this time, I'll actually see that quilting design that I just did. Now this time, I'm going to show you, if you have a lot of squares or rectangles to outline, I'm going to show you a faster way to do multiple designs. Multiple squares, I should say. So I see, and triangle. We'll do a triangle this time as well. We're going to do them all at the same time. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, let's see what it shows up on the screen here. Now let's darken this up. So I'm not going to go down this side because I can't see all the fabric over there. But I can do this one and that one, not that one. So I'm going to program in this pink square, this striped square that's not been quilted, and this piece right here. Okay? So what I'm going to do before I go any further, I'm going to go over here to Regions Properties, and I'm going to make it a no-sew line, the zigzag with the red line through it, and then I am going to click, this time, I'm going to click the straight line, icon number 3, and that just does one straight line at a time. But I'm going to show you why. Here's a cool time-saving trick for this. Click on OK. And now I'm going to zoom it up. Let's see here. I'm going to zoom it up to 200. See what that does for me here. Go up here. So I'm going to do this triangle. But I'm also going to do this square and this square. So I want to go from here all the way up to here. So there's the number 3 icon, which is the point, which is the single line drawing tool. And I'm going to go past. It's going to come down this way also. So I'm just going to put one big long line this way. And I don't have to stop at each corner this time. I'm going to shoot past my corners just a little bit, because another way to do it is this. Kind of like, think of drawing something along the line of a tic-tac-toe grid line to play tic-tac-toe on, okay? So I'm going to click it there, and you have to hold down on your left mouse button when you pull this line out. Oops. But you also have to click on the drawing tool. Now I'm going to make this even a little bit lighter so I can see where I'm at. But now, as I move my mouse around, I have a straight line moving with it. Okay, so if I bring it down to here, well, that would work fine there, but it's not quite in the right position right here. So I am just going to undo that. And I'm going to get me a different grip on it right there. And that's really good. So I'm going to let go of it, and I'll show you, oops, I'm going to show you what I did. Let me draw that down one more time. Okay. Now, I'm going to go out to 100% so I can show you what I did. What I've done here, I'm going to darken it up for a minute. I've drawn a line past that corner all the way down to here past this corner, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to outline the triangle, that square, and that square. Okay? So by doing that, now I'm going to draw a line here down to here the same way, but I'm going to zoom in to do it, because you get much more accuracy when you're zoomed in than when you're not. And I'm going to move it over a little bit, because this next line is going to be those two lines, two squares right there. So we're going to go right up here. Come right down that way. And there's what I said. This is not perfectly straight. So what I would want to do, let's see here. I am going to undo that, and I'm going to turn on my lightning bolt, because that is just not straight enough to do this one with, unfortunately. But that's okay. So I put it on that corner, tapping it there, tapping it there. I'm just going to go on around with this. Move it over. Then we'll go up here. Oops, a little bit more. And that is not a clean enough corner for me to go to. That's okay, I can't do that one without repositioning my quilt sandwich, but that's okay. And then this corner right here, I think, is where we're at. We've already got that. And that. Lighten it up where I can see it better. There we go. Now I know where I'm at. Okay. So we need to go right up here. Oh, there we go. Right up there. Okay. Now I'm not going to actually fill this one in, because it's not in the precise true corner right over here, because it's as far as the scanning image went. But you'll see what I mean here in just a second. Now I'm going to go back out to 100%. And that's already been quilted. I have one line right up here to make yet. So we're going to go back over to that single line, line number 3. And I'm going to zoom in 200, squish it down so I can see both ends good. There we go. Pick up that line, and then I'm just going to come over this way. And a little bit right up there. Okay. It doesn't matter if they don't meet perfectly as long as they close off, because remember, everything I'm drawing now does not stitch out. These are just to define the spaces I want to fill with quilting stitches. So we're going to go back to 100%, and now we'll find out if I have any gaps in my line. So I'm going to go here to Regent's property next, and I'm going to pick up my quilting stitches, the decorative fill patterns. I'm going to pick a different design this time. I'm going to go down to the one I told you was one of my favorites, the multi-circles. Click on OK. I'm going to put that in the big square right here. Oops. Make sure you turn that fill bucket on. There we go. Well, that's a good one. Filled that one in just right. And let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Now I'm going to do something really geometrical. This is a cool one here. Number 16. Hold on there. Actually, I'm going to use this crackle, number 10. It's another one of my favorites. Click on OK. I'm going to fill in this little triangular piece up here with that. My fill bucket is on. Tap. Now, since it filled the entire screen, guess what? That means I have a gap right up here somewhere. This happens to everybody, so don't freak out if that happens. All you do, click that undo button one time, and now we're back. Now we know in one of these corners there's a gap. So we're going to magnify it up. Let's go up to 400. And let's go up to 800. And then we're just going to examine it and look and see if we can see where that gap is. And there is that triangle that we're trying to fill in. Let's go up this way. And right there it is. There's one little gap right there on that hole. So while we're zoomed in, we're going to touch our point-to-point pencil tool, click and drag and let go, and then it should be good. Without moving anything, I know right here is where I'm going to fill in. So we're going to tap that fill bucket and tap it again. It didn't fill the entire screen, so I know that was it. Now we'll go back to 100%. You can see where it's got that completely. That's our perfect little triangle there. Now remember, I did put lines up here, but we're just not going to fill that in because it just needs to come over this way about another 1/4 inch to have that entire filled in there. And so I'm just going to leave that alone. Now if I wanted to, let's see, is there any other ones I could do? Yes, no. These are not fully in the image right here. So those are the ones I could do right now. Now, if I hadn't already quilted all this, I could apply that to all of them in one go. So we're good. Now we're going to hit the next button. And I'm going to leave these at 100%. There's only two things I'm going to change. I'm going to turn on my outline. Click on OK. Now notice there's a red box around that triangle. That's the only one I'm adjusting. You can preview right up here. It shows what quilt pattern I'm adjusting right now. And that's that one right there. So that's on, and I want this on light, the thickness. Click on OK. And now I want to adjust this one right here. I can click on it, or I could use these arrows here to toggle as well. Notice if I click on this right pointing arrow, it goes back to that one. If I click on it again, it comes down to this one. So once again, I'm going to go and turn the outline on. It's like this is how I like to roll with my quilting. And then I'm going to turn the thickness to light and click on OK. And then I'm going to hit the set button and click on OK. And now we're in embroidery edit. I'm going to go to embroidery. And then all I have to do is pull up my bobbin thread. Now one thing I didn't do the last time I want to show you. The needle plus and minus, if you click on that, and then right now where the needle's at here, that's not where it'll start sewing. So if you tap where it says +1, that's where that needle's going to start stitching at. So here is where I want to actually pull up if you're going to pull up your bobbin thread, here is the location you want to do that at, right here. Oops. Needle down, needle up. It just theoretically took one stitch. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go -1. And now we're right back to where it should be. Okay, Another way to do that is to hit the needle in its 0 position. But what that does, it brings it back. It brought it back up to here, but that's not where it'll start stitching. So you always want to make it at that +1. And then I'm just going to hold it down and hit the start button. And let's stitch away from where the beginning is. And then we'll just clip those threads even with the top. Right there. Press the start button and let it stitch out. And each one of those will take about 2 minutes to stitch. Lots of fun. Excuse me. And yes, everybody, I will edit what I've done tonight and post it on YouTube so that you can have a better, on YouTube you actually can have better video quality than here on Facebook. Just so you know that when it comes to something that's been recorded and saved. But check out all those different size circles right there. Isn't that cool? Now it's going to go up to that. And here I will have a jump stitch to trim. But that's okay, that's easy enough to do. Because when you program more than one square in, it will move the needle over to the next one without clipping those threads. So there is another one of the things to consider when you're quilting in the hoop. If I did not have my quilt backing on that, I wouldn't care about jump stitches or anything like that. As far as, or just having it cut and do all the trimming without the outline. It's only when you're quilting the entire quilt sandwich, in my opinion, is when you would want to turn those thread cutters off. So you have a much cleaner looking design on your quilt back, on the back of your quilt. And that's almost done. I love that in that triangle. That really looks nice. And that's how easy it is, and that's all there is to it. So much fun. Oh, you can see my mess over there. That's not fun.